A really important part of functional medicine and holistic medicine is lifestyle. Lifestyle is a foundation for our health. And what do I mean by lifestyle medicine? Sleep, movement and exercise, food as medicine or nutrition, stress. I like to bring in joy into that part of lifestyle medicine, and relationships. So I have this quote here from Thoreau: though I do not believe a plant will spring up where no seed has been, I have great faith in a seed. Convince me you have a seed there, and I am prepared to expect wonders. So I think of lifestyle medicine, all these areas of lifestyle medicine, as little seeds that we plant. And then throughout our life, we nurture them. And it really can create this beautiful garden of health if we're tending to them day in and day out. So I want to talk about sleep. Let's see if we can get this to... Okay. Sleep is just essential. And I think in our culture, at least, we tend to pride ourselves on the fact that we're not sleeping a lot, or we can get through our day on 3 or 4 hours of sleep. And it's tearing us apart. It is destroying our health. So much of our repair happens when we're sleeping, and high quality sleep. Our brains detoxify during this time. Our bodies detoxify. We get the rest and the restoration that we need to function optimally the next day. And most people in the world do not get enough sleep. 7 hours of sleep a night at least is what we should all be aiming for. And for children, it's more. Usually based on age, there's recommendations. For example, I have a 9-year-old. They recommend 9 to 12 hours of sleep a night. You can look up those guidelines. But for most adults, the average adult, we really want to aim for 7+ hours of sleep a night. And I would say if you are an athlete, if you are in a high-stress job, you may need more than that, because you are breaking your body down and stressing your system so much day in and day out that you need more recovery through sleep. I want to talk about sleep hygiene a little bit. So sleep hygiene they're behavioral factors that influence how we're sleeping, the quality of our sleep. And we can improve our sleep hygiene to improve our sleep. So let's just talk about a few things that we can do, a few tips that if you're struggling with sleep, these are some things that you can start to implement today to see if your sleep gets better. First, morning sun. I don't think people realize how important this is. Why is it important? Because it sets our circadian rhythm. We tune in to the light of the sun. And so if we are going out first thing in the morning, say we wake up, and within a half an hour or so of waking up, we go outside without sunglasses on, with our eyes open, we're receiving that first morning light. There's a lot of blue light, and blue light shuts off melatonin production, which we don't want melatonin earlier in the day because it makes us sleepy. So that's a good thing. We want to go outside. We want to get that first morning light. We want, the brain to receive the signal of wake, alert, so that then sends signals to other parts of our body so that our hormones are in sync to be awake and alert at this point in the day, and then later in the day to start to become tired. So that first morning sun is really important in setting our circadian rhythm, setting our sleep schedule. I really encourage limiting stimulants and caffeine after 12 p.m. if possible, and then no alcohol later in the evening. If you are somebody who's struggling with sleep and sleep onset is a big issue, then I would say do a trial of no caffeine at all, just for a little bit, maybe a week or two, and see if it makes a difference. Because even though sometimes people don't feel that caffeine is really stimulating to them, it could still be affecting their physiology in a way that they're not able to fall asleep at night, even if they're drinking a cup of coffee in the morning. And then for others, they're not really affected by it at all. And this is, very, very much genetically determined, our ability to metabolize caffeine. And then alcohol, sometimes people think that alcohol helps them fall asleep, and maybe it does, but it really disrupts what's called sleep architecture. So making sure we're going through the stages of sleep, making sure we're getting deep sleep and REM sleep. And alcohol can really mess around with that. I mean, there's a lot of issues with alcohol, but when in reference to sleep, it can really interfere with high quality sleep. So I would say avoid alcohol altogether in general for the most part. Or if you're going to have a glass of wine or something, do it within, 3 to 4 hours of bed, and not within 3 to 4 hours, but more than 3 to 4 hours of bedtime. Because if you're drinking it, it's very close to bed, then it's really going to impact sleep. Screens, that is a big trigger for sleep disturbances. So many people have their phone right next to their bed, or they have a big screen TV in their room, or they've got their computer on their lap, and they're being inundated with this blue light. And blue light will trigger the brain to shut off melatonin. And earlier in the day, when I mentioned that, that's a good thing. We don't want melatonin high in the morning. We want it higher in the evening, because melatonin is going to allow us to fall asleep. It makes us feel sleepy. It kind of is important for sleep onset. So what can we do to block the blue light? If possible, just not being on our phones, not being on our computers, maybe creating some distance between you and the TV screen, dimming lights at night. If that's not possible, then wearing blue light blocking glasses, or putting light adjusters on your screens, or there's apps that you can program into your computer and your phone to dim the light as you're getting later in the day. And then additionally, if you're still struggling with sleep, we can add supplements. I use a lot of magnesium. Now, I'm not telling you this that you need to go out and take a bunch of magnesium. I would say before you start any supplements, work with a medical provider, because even though they're supplements, if we take too much of it, it can still be harmful to our bodies. So I always just say that caution, say that warning. If you want to start supplements, I would work with a healthcare provider to make sure you're taking the right things and the right dosages. But I'll throw out a few that I like to use. Magnesium bisglycinate, or a magnesium, usually a bisglycinate, a chelated form of magnesium, is helpful for bedtime. And then there are a lot of herbs out there. There's calming herbs like lemon balm, and there's valerian root, chamomile. So again, I think if you're still having issues after you've done the sleep hygiene part, then just know that there are natural supplements, there are herbs and nutrients that you can take to help with sleep. Nutrition is also an important thing to remember. Some of us, and this is where this personalized medicine piece is so important, because some people do much better on an emptier stomach when they're going to bed. So making sure that your last meal is before 7 o'clock if you're going to bed around 10. Giving yourself a couple of hours after your last meal to digest, calm down, and then when you lay down flat, you're not getting things like reflux, and your body's not exerting all this energy to digest, so you can really allow your body to go into sleep. Other people who have blood sugar issues might benefit from a small protein-rich snack before bed. So maybe even something like a little bit of turkey that stimulates tryptophan, which can be converted ultimately into melatonin. I don't know if there's research around that, but we might want to just think about those of us who have blood sugar issues, who wake up in the middle of the night and are hungry, or their blood sugar is tanking, to have a small protein-rich meal before bed. So sometimes I encourage people to take a handful of almonds and maybe a little bit of deli meat, or what are a couple of other examples? If you eat dairy, you could do some cottage cheese or yogurt. If you don't do dairy, you could do maybe a little bit of apple with peanut butter. So you're getting a little bit of fat, a little bit of protein, and it'll help stabilize blood sugar overnight. So just knowing that nutrition can play into this, and again, working with a healthcare provider to figure out what works for you. Movement is important to consider too. If you're working out really intensely right before bed, it's likely going to defer sleep onset. So try to do your higher intensity workout earlier on in the day, and then do something, if you do want to do movement later in the day, do something calming like yoga, tai chi, just stretching, gentle stretching. And then ultimately, if you're still struggling, medications can be helpful. I think if we've exhausted every other option and people are still not sleeping well, then temporarily I will give medications, because sleep is so essential that sometimes we can put up with side effects of medications, or, we're not going to do this long term, but to help somebody get their circadian rhythm back on track can be really important. So last ditch efforts, I think, are medications, and this is definitely something you have to work with a healthcare provider on. So I hope this was helpful. If you have more questions around sleep, please let me know. If you would like to work with me, I am a functional medicine provider with Kestrel Wellness. Please reach out to me. I would love to support you.